After a wonderful few days exploring in and around the Darwin CBD, we're heading to a few sites further out. Holmes Jungle is about 20 kilometres from the city with a good range of habitats. Driving in, we're passing a rubbish tip with the usual hovering cloud of kites, predominantly black kites, displaying their forked tails. The more common ground feeders are present on the outskirts, the engaging little double-barred finch, ubiquitous peaceful dove, and the water has attracted a long-tailed finch. However, watching quietly from above is a species we haven't seen yet, brown goshawk, larger than the collared sparrowhawk and with a rounded rather than square tail. It imperiously ignores a family of grey-crowned babblers which are foraging busily around it. After all, there's a smorgasbord of prey species spread out below. Meanwhile, the babblers, communal, boisterous and inquisitive, continue to flow through the branches, continuously chattering and emitting various contact calls. Togetherness is the essence of this species' behaviour. Farther in, there's Pandanus, favoured habitat of the crimson finch. It's not its call, tiny and tinkling, but its glorious vivid colour which brings this bird to our attention. Into the monsoon rainforest, and there are branches being disturbed in a large fig tree, so we're on the lookout for pigeons. The large, elegant Teresian imperial pigeon is easily seen, but smaller fruit doves are surprisingly difficult to spot, despite their brilliantly colourful plumage. However, there is at least one feeding in the same tree, the beautiful rose-crowned fruit dove. Even better, the male has come much lower to utter his booming mating call, and we're getting wonderful views of his spectacular pink and golden breast and belly. Wow! The nominate race, Regina, which occurs from Cape York down the east coast of Australia, is less colourful, with less yellow and more grey on its neck and upper breast. Migrating from New Guinea to breed here is eastern cole, a large parasitic cuckoo, which uses nests of birds such as firebirds and babblers. Its very loud, unceasing call during the early breeding season is only too well known. Nearby Knuckey Lagoons are in an area of low-lying paddocks that holds water in the wet season. It's an extremely hot day, causing this little pied cormorant to pant rapidly and making it difficult to focus through the heat haze, but we spotted glossy ibis, the smallest and least common of the 3 ibis species occurring in Australia. Brolgas are flying in. With a wingspan of almost 2.5 metres and standing 1 metre in height, these birds are an impressive sight. An iconic Australian species, they are one of only 2 members of the crane family in Australia, the other being Sarus crane. Brolgas pair for life, but family groups gather in flocks in the non-breeding season. They prefer grasslands and floodplains where they can feed on the rhizomes of sedges, but they're omnivorous, also eating insects, frogs and molluscs. Pairs build large nests and return to the same breeding spot year after year. They're famous for their dancing and communal nuptial displays, where pairs face each other and leap into the air, tossing sticks and grass and trumpeting loudly. Yes, that's a great bird to have observed and added to the list. And we can leave for our last site for the day, Palmerston Sewage Ponds. As we enter, so does a large flock of red-tailed black cockatoos, noisily flying overhead with ponderous wing beats and strident calls. They settle in the eucalypts around the periphery of the pond, their staple diet being the seeds of casuarinas, tearing open the tough cones with their large beak. The female is spotted with orange tail panels, while the male is all black, except for his striking red tail panels. This female is drinking from puddles inside the pond fence. Also inside the fence, taking advantage of its preferred deeper water habitat, is wandering whistling duck. This is a good opportunity for us to observe this species, which is warier and less common than plumed whistling duck. Waders forage around the edges, but the searing heat encourages us to call it a day and head back to Darwin. This morning we've decided to visit Window on the Wetlands, which is on the Arnhem Highway, soon after the turn off to Fogg Dam, which we'll visit on the way back. Both should be prolific sites for waterbirds, with Fogg Dam also having a variety of other habitats. This certainly is a very beautiful site, flickering with many species of diving, hovering and wading waterbirds. The most active is whiskered tern, a common small tern found throughout Australia, preferring bodies of shallow fresh water. It breeds in colonies, with pairs building floating nests of vegetation. Comb-crested jacana skims low, dangling its legs with which it steers, before landing and seeming to walk on the surface of the water. Little egret is a small, dainty white bird which actively chases prey through the shallows. In contrast is the huge, imposing 1.3 metre black-necked stork. This is a male with a black eye. The female's eye is yellow. The only member of the stork family in Australia, it's found mainly on wetlands and grasslands of the tropics and subtropics, deliberately stalking prey, then lunging quickly, often stabbing with its massive beak. But it's an impressively graceful sight when it takes to the air. We're heading back towards Darwin now, but we'll take the turn off to Fogg Dam. This was originally built to provide water for rice production, but has now become a wonderful wetland conservation reserve. We drive in through monsoon rainforest and then along the wall of the dam with extensive wetlands on both sides. The dazzlingly blue forest kingfisher takes a range of prey from invertebrates to fish. A much closer look at comb-crested jacana reveals the secret of its ability to walk on water. Look at the spread of those toes to distribute its weight, the longest toes of any bird, and yet it can swim underwater with unwebbed feet. Amazing. The colourful buff-banded rail is probably the least shy of the secretive skulking family of crakes and rails, and one of the most widespread. It's a busy forager along the shallow waterways with a wide-ranging diet. Green pygmy goose is actually a duck, though with a goose-like short bill. It's most often seen in pairs, the male with an iridescent green neck and a smaller white face patch. It feeds on aquatic vegetation, mainly the seeds and buds of water lilies. This watery habitat is ideal for crimson finch, the least social and most aggressive of the finches. The trees lining the dam provide perfect vantage points for raptors. Found only in the north of Australia, white-browed crake is a strikingly patterned bird of tropical freshwater wetlands, favouring those with plenty of floating vegetation. It has the longest toes of any crake, so that it can scramble about through reeds and walk almost as well as jacana over more open semi-aquatic environment. When frightened, it hides underwater with only its head showing and can swim away underwater to escape danger. At the end of the dam, there's an excellent lookout over the vast expanse of wetlands. It's teeming with waterbirds, foraging, grooming, or just loafing. Some, like this royal spoonbill, are displaying their breeding plumage, as is this pied heron. There's competition for the best display points, and it looks like the spoonbill has grabbed this one. Agile wallaby is common across the top end, but it's a shy and solitary feeder. Magpie goose is also very common and congregates in flocks of thousands as available wetlands dry out. The males have the larger cranial knobs which grow with age. They have traditionally been an important Aboriginal food item. A large swamp-like Fogg dam is needed to support a resident pair of black-necked stork, and this immature bird indicates there has been successful breeding. Raja shelduck is unmistakable with an almost white head. It prefers grazing on wetlands and swims infrequently. Driving back along the dam, we encounter the adult male black-necked stork, which continues its stately, high-stepping stroll, deliberate and unhurried, while we admire the iridescent sheen of his head and neck in the sunlight, his bright orange legs, and his pristine black and white plumage, so unlike the grubby magpie geese, though it looks as though insects are annoying even this tall, majestic lord of the wetlands. And perched where they have the best view over their domain are the magnificent rulers of this habitat, a pair of white-bellied sea eagles, completely aware but aloof in their position at the top of the food chain. Generalist carnivores with a very large beak, they're found around the coast of Australia but rare in the south. Wow! We're nearly at the end of the dam wall and entering the monsoon rainforest. The path is alive with butterflies fluttering up around us. Beautiful. Excitement! A pitta is calling. We're scanning the ground. But it's a different bird we spot. Pheasant cuckoo in breeding plumage is making its ungainly way through the understory. Although a member of the cuckoo family, it builds its own nest and rears its young. It eats small vertebrates like frogs as well as insects, spiders and crabs. It spends much of its time on the ground and looks very cumbersome in trees. More butterflies. And another cuckoo, little bronze cuckoo, a male with a diagnostic red orbital ring. It favours wetlands where it parasitises white-throated or fairy gerygony. At the end of the boardwalk, a pot of gold, in the form of a mixed flock of waterbirds, including Brolgas and glossy ibis. On our last day of using Darwin as our base, we head down the Stewart Highway for 30 kilometres before turning off to Howard Springs. On the way we explore a small creek and find Australia's smallest and the world's second smallest kingfisher, Little Kingfisher. A true kingfisher, it perches unobtrusively on an overhanging log or branch above the water, waiting and watching for prey. Then leaping upwards to turn and dive headfirst into the water like a streak of light. Though it bobs like Asia kingfisher and shares similar habitat, it's only half its size, with a white underbelly and black feet. Secretive, shy, and so tiny, but brilliantly coloured even in the dimness of the canopy. We're thrilled with having observed this petite rainforest jewel. We're driving into the nature reserve itself now, where the spring sustains a lush patch of monsoon rainforest, which is a reliable site for rainbow pitta and many other species. A nest of orange-footed scrubfowl, the smallest of Australia's 3 megapod species, builds the biggest mound to incubate its eggs. The mounds of soil and rotting leaf litter can be up to 13 metres across and 3 metres high. The elegant spangled drongo, common in the monsoon rainforest, is unmistakable with its red eye and fishtail. The spangles appear when the sun shines on its iridescent black feathers. But we're distracted by hearing a pitta calling and by silverback butcherbird, which can't seem to decide whether or not the snake is safe to eat. Maybe it will impale it on a sharp branch, storing it for later, a behaviour that helped earn the butcherbird family name. This mosquito-infested habitat is heaven for flycatchers of all kinds, if not for us. A pair of shining flycatchers exhibits striking sexual dimorphism, the female chestnut with black head and white underparts, while the male is indeed a shining black. They're noisy, active birds, which make their presence known. The path marks a distinct boundary with monsoon rainforest on the creek side and drier sclerophyll eucalypt on the other. Another active flitting flycatcher, Arafura Fantail, a pretty confiding little bird, very like the larger and more widespread Rufous Fantail, but restricted to the top end. The two species behave very similarly and have almost the same high-pitched silvery notes. It flicks and turns in almost constant motion, fanning its tail, then darting to snap up an insect. The Arafura Fantail has less black on its breast and larger white tail tips than the Rufous Fantail, which has more extensive chestnut down its tail. Male leaden flycatcher is dipping in and out of the creek, shaking off droplets and shivering its tail in a characteristic manner. But again we're distracted by the pitta calling. It's somewhere very close, but still we can't see it. Meanwhile, there's activity in the mid-canopy rather than on the ground. A pair of little shrike thrush is foraging here, probably gleaning spiders. The top-end race, Parvola, is the largest and greyest. Their liquid call is melodious and carrying. Still scanning for pitta? And there it is, rainbow pitta, revealed by the shining flash of the iridescent blue shoulder patch, a stunning little bird with velvet black breast and belly, rufous-capped head, olive wings and red vent. It's territorial, breeding in the same spot each year, foraging in leaf litter on the forest floor for earthworms, snails and insects, although it does perch in trees and has a strong direct flight. This is the distinctive call that has teased us for 3 days. Of the 3 pittas occurring in Australia, it's the only endemic and found only in the top end. Noisy pitta occurs in rainforest down the east coast of Australia and in southern New Guinea. And Papuan pitta, as the name indicates, is a wet season breeding migrant from New Guinea. This spectacular little endemic completes the Australian triumvirate of these charismatic ground birds, and now it's on to kakadu.